Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depending where you are. Welcome to Connect Africa. Welcome to our daily session where we analyze what's happening in the continent. So today we are going to look at the day fifths, which we just entered today. The day fifths of the Nigerian protest. It just got intensified. So many things have happened over the weekend. Beside Kwame is always here to analyze these things, but we are glad that we are joined here by Sister Choice. We're very happy. Sister Choice is from Nigeria. I'm going to introduce her in a minute. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, Kwame. Welcome, Sister Choice.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Sister Mahlet, it's always a pleasure to be on Connect Africa. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much,
So,
Mahlet, as well. Thank you very much, and
okay.
Sister Choice for being part of the program.
So let me introduce Sister Choice briefly. She's the founder of Gender Electoral Representation in Nigeria, which is founded in 2023. She's also the former United Nations staff and diplomat in humanitarian affairs. She was also the humanitarian, before that, she worked there from 2017 to 2023, and then as human rights officer from 1999 to 2007. So she has an immense rich in experience how these international organizations operate. So it's not her first time to join Connect Africa, but it has been a while since we have had her here. But today, for the right reason, since she's from Nigeria, and the topic is today about the Nigerian protests. So let me start with the first question. I think it's always good to give a background for the people. How did it start? Although we have been updating you here, mainly Kwame, he has been updating you here on daily basis. So since you have done it, Kwame, I'm going to start with Sister Choice. How did it start, and what are the main issues, raised by these people that we see, the Nigerian people that we see on the street? What is really the main reason for them? Yes, we have heard hunger, we have heard bad governance, but please lay it out for us, Sister Choice.
I think I'm glad Kwame and Mahlet. I know how well you love the continent. We're Pan-Africanists, so we automatically get on point when we see things happening. So I don't even have to go to the issues as you mentioned is there we have the placards, people are demonstrating, and what they say is true. Now, I tend to look at the positive of any positive shoot from the continent, and I want to amplify that. I must say very clearly, since relocating back to Nigeria 2 years ago, having worked around the world for about 30 years, I relocated with my boys. I have a son, and I was appalled at the progressive level at which things were sinking. And you saw that. I came back and looked at the faces of very energetic, but in despair. So how did it start? It started from literally decades of lack of space for young Nigerians to have any political voice. It started from decades of youth being silenced. And yes, the current president, Tinubu, is bearing the brunt of it. But this has grown progressively, at least for the last 20 years. I was here when they did about 6, elections ago. It was bad as well. It started because of the blatant, unapologetic entitlement of some Nigerians to electoral office, which election is questionable. Don't forget, the May 23rd election had a lot of questions. In fact, has not been accepted globally, internationally. And then and the Nigerian youth saw it. It progressed again to the first action that the new president took on was to remove fuel subsidy. And that crashed, literally crashed the economy. Now, there's something that's an anomaly in Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the top oil producing countries in Africa, in the world, actually. And I grew up in the area where, crude oil is taken from, the Niger Delta. Now, it's painful to go back there. You need to see the level of poverty, environmental degradation, and poverty. The oil is taken. There's what they call oil concession to those who have, which I call corruption. The young people have seen it. The youth have grown to see the access by a few to the national resources of Nigeria. Nigeria is rich, and this is done with impunity. It's actually boldly stated. So how did it get here? It got here because corruption had been meted out with impunity. Young people have seen it happen. I mean, you have a situation where the son of the president wears a 650,000 watch to tell Nigerians to be patient. Now, you've mentioned what the demands that are being made. They are 15, and you can bring them down to bring back oil subsidy, petrol subsidy. Nigeria basically takes crude oil from Nigeria, takes it to a place like Malta to be refined and brought back in very expensive form. Since I came back for 2 years now, I see Nigerians queued up trying to get petrol. It could take you literally a day to get petrol. It is frustrating. I have traveled the world. We got here, so you see multitude of frustration. Okay, there's no petrol in an oil-producing country. I have lived in many parts of the world in my work, remote parts of the world. There's no electricity in Nigeria. There are communities, families who they've not had access to electricity for literally a year. Think if you run a small to medium enterprise, you can't do it because you don't have, you need some form of electricity. Yeah. Now let's go take it again. The former president with the same political party, All People's Political Congress, APC. We had a president before Tinubu in the same party. All People's Congress, they called it. The party had former Muhammadu Buhari. When he came in, he basically went to the UK for 3 months because he needed medical services and literally held Nigeria, no budget, nothing, took his time and popped over occasionally and takes 2 months while the country was basically was held to ransom. Then we had a 2023 election where the current president basically said, it's my turn. He did not reveal any policy, any plan. There was no policy or budget plan revealed. He just said, it's my turn. And he said he made the other one, Buhari, come in. So it's now his turn. He didn't address the country. He didn't debate the presidential candidates of the other parties. He did none of that. And he came in. And he boasted before he came in that the first thing he would do was to remove oil subsidy. The oil subsidy has been in existence since 1970. And that is normal for an oil-producing country. There should be some of subsidy. He said he's taking it out. He took it out. And it launched massive economic hardship. I've never seen, I was born in Nigeria, raised here, I've never seen anything as hard. Then he went further, in spite of the hardship, he went further and to take off electricity tariff. You're taking off electricity tariff in a country where electricity is not produced. You see, so this is one after the other. Then you had citizens, the youth, who walk with despair in the eyes. And I described it in a kind of, to somebody. I said, the youth look desperately in despair. Why the older Nigerians have a rested level of hopelessness. That's the way you describe Nigeria as we are. And what is sad about it is that you see the country throbbing with possibilities. Now understand, in the middle of the pain and of the pain where the hardship in the country, the president of Nigeria is looking to buy a new private jet of $500 million. $500 million. I mean, this is it. For the first time, I searched to find the positive element of my country, Nigeria. I could not find it. I tried, because it's hard for me to be negative about any African country, because I know the world runs around trying to do so. I sat down, I said, I can't find any. I looked, I said, I can't find it. I can't. So what you see on TV is what it is. I don't want to preempt the questions you have, but I want to say that what you see on TV is what it is. It is tough for Nigerians right now. And some of the high-risk solutions now Nigerian youth have pursued for the last 20 years is not delivering anymore, mentally and in a lot of ways. And that's why you have Nigerians saying, the alternative, the options we pursued have not delivered. We demand more. We demand more. And there are many of us who said, we said, this is it. This is about time. And I want to finish on this level to say that one of the challenges, how we got here for Nigeria, is that Nigeria had settled into resilience for too long. They looked at resilience. If the government is misbehaving, we can find other alternatives to just get by. We get by. And each year, each new government, it gets worse, it gets worse, it gets worse. Because if the other government got away with that, I could kick it up a notch and get away with this, get away with that. And the resilience can be an enabler of bad governance. That's what I say. There were too many years of resilience, and this is time. This is time. That's how we got here. We got here by years of let me say it, leadership that have not been accountable to Nigerians, especially in the last, I would say in the last 9 years. It's been worse in the last 9 years. It took 9 years, build up of 9 years to get here. Thank you.
Oh my God. I thank you. We thank you, Sister Choice, for sharing your pain with us. And I know you for being so positive. With Sister Choice, we talk a lot. We talk a lot, even when we don't talk. Maybe every week or something, once in a month, and we talk for hours. And I know how she's so positive. And I'm just thinking, while you are explaining the situation, if you feel this much, I can't imagine those, who have nothing, how they feel, how they have been for so long, It's so painful. And one of the things that we say here at Connect Africa is Nigeria have the most talented people in the world, not in Africa, in the world, and smartest people, richest as well. And I don't know how it got here. As Kwame said last time, there's one thing that he introduced us to. One of the things that what Nelson Mandela or Madiba said, was it Madiba? Yeah. When Nigeria gets it, then every country in the continent will get it. The resilience is, to some extent, it's questionable. How? It's even, we ask how people are so comfortable with this. I mean, as an African, is this inherited? What's wrong with us for us to be so, tolerating this kind of things? While we reminisce on that one, let me move to Kwame. Kwame, you have listened, and we all have listened, what yesterday Bola Tinubu came out to say. He failed basically to address the burning issue. But can you give us your reflection on that?
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and thank you very much, Sister Joyce, for speaking so passionately. Really, you know, I could see that you're speaking from the heart, and I could see the pain. Myself, I've been, I've had the opportunity. I've been blessed to be able to visit various African countries like Kenya, and of course, I was born in Uganda. My grandmother was born in Tanzania. I think that I'm just naturally a Pan Africanist. I've visited Sierra Leone and seen the lives of the people, how difficult it is. You know, I've lived in Sierra Leone for for 3 good months, and it was bad. It was bad. So when you speak about what is really happening in Nigeria, I agree. I agree. I was looking at the data recently, and I was looking at the electricity generation for Nigeria, and I was shocked. You know, of course, today we've been analyzing the fuel, which is imported within Nigeria, and why different people are trying to sabotage, of course, the Nigerian refinery. But we are majorly today analyzing the importation of fuel in Nigeria, which is up to almost around $20 billion every year, every single year, $20 billion. And the people who are pouring most of this fuel in the country, they are European refineries and others, which you said that they belong to Nigerians, who have put them in places like Malta. But Nigeria is producing 4,000 megawatts for a country of for a country of 250 million people. To produce just 4,000 megawatts of electricity is really disturbing. That in itself is very disturbing, because if you go to Ghana, of course Ghana too has its problems. We know that the president has a lot of problems, but in Ghana, a country of 30 million, they also have an installed capacity of 4,000 megawatts. So when I compared it recently, it beat my mind now, and I was shocked, and I was like, now how can you sustain industrialization in a country like that? So it led me to compare it again to Sierra Leone, where I was, that a country of 80 million, they are producing a mere 100 megawatts of electricity. So I saw that this problem actually is cutting across, because in Sierra Leone in itself, more than 90% of the people, they don't have access to electricity. It is only 10%, and that 10% is in Freetown itself. So the rest of the country, now you ask yourself, how are we going to compete? When I was there, I asked myself, how then are we going to compete? How are our children going to compete with the the children who are in Europe and the United States, who have 24/7 electricity? It doesn't go off. 24/7 internet, high speed internet, it doesn't go off. Then how are our children going to compete with these kind of people? So when you are speaking, I saw it, you know, how you are, putting it out there passionately. And I felt touched. I really felt touched myself. I knew, of course, slightly what is happening, in Nigeria. But again, listening, to it from someone who is on the ground and who's seeing what is really on the ground, gives you another dimension, puts you on another level of understanding, of what is really on the ground. And of course, that brings me to Tinubu's, speech which he gave yesterday. I was listening to it. I watched the whole speech, and I even read the whole speech. And it is no accident that the protests today have been intensified, because I've been monitoring these protests from when they started. Day one, second day, third day. Okay, the first day, the second, and the third day, I've been monitoring them. So the intensity went on dying until the third day. But what I realized is that on the fourth day, again it reduced on the fourth day. Now, what I'm realizing is that on the fifth day, after the speech which Tinubu came out to give, it even angered the people. Because even myself, when I read it, I was just angered, because what is in the speech, what is in Tinubu's speech, it doesn't really address anything to do with the demands of the people. Instead, what he brought out was intimidation. Okay, he came out and with his loose talk of how he is recognized, the pain that the people are going through and how people have died, but again said that he will not allow anyone to destabilize the country. So he came out again with threats. All right. So the threat itself, without addressing really the problem of things of issues of fuel subsidies, which have devastated the people. Sister Choice have written an article. Actually, when he came to power and immediately removed the subsidies, I wrote an article on Nigeria that Tinubu must do restructuring of the economy instead of reforming these reforms, which is playing with and removing subsidies. We said that if the subsidies have a problem, it is not the people who have the problem. Okay, so it is the implementation of the subsidies. So you cannot blame the people who are entitled to those subsidies and say you are removing them because somebody is misusing them. And the people who are misusing the subsidies, as it claims, he is with them in the government. So it is not, the problem is not with the subsidies. It is the implementation of the subsidies, and you are the one who is implementing the subsidies. So then why do you want to penalize the people who are entitled to these benefits as a people? So this is what we, this is our position, of course. This is what we saw. So you can see that somebody is heartless, but again, you can see that there's something driving him, because you see these loans coming in from the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. I've just seen another 1.5 billion dollar thing, something which has been released by the World Bank. They are saying they are going to give it for Nigeria for the energy sector. Of course, these loans they keep coming. They never stop coming. So the speech, all of it, you can see that is filled with mediocrity of what he's trying to. He's trying to achieve. Build some houses, and those houses are going to provide the jobs for the people. He's not really addressing the people, and he's talking about a minimum wage for the people. The people demanded that the minimum wage which was provided is really nothing. 70,000 naira is just $42. So how can somebody survive on $42? $42. How can somebody survive on $42 for a month? You see, so the protesters are demanding that you should increase the minimum wage by 4 times, quadruple the minimum wage, at least put it, somewhere around $200 or $150, at least somewhere there. He came out to tell us that he increased, he gave the minimum wage, he established the minimum wage of $70,000, which is $42. So if you ask President Tinubu himself, can one of his children live on $42 a month? Can they live on $42, which is 70,000 naira a month? And they can't. So why is he saying that people who have children and have families, they should go to work and live on $42 and 70,000 naira? So it really doesn't make sense. And for me, when I saw that the protests have been intensified today, which is the 50th day, I knew that it was this nonsensical speech which he gave. And of course, it is the people are justified. And I'm glad that even people like Wale Sonjika, Sonjika came out, to condemn, Tinubu's speech and the words he used to try to intimidate that he will come out and they will crush anyone and stuff like that. Because the people, are taking a stand against corruption, which is painful, which has been going on for a long time. The mismanagement of the country. Mismanagement of the country for 60 good years. 60 good years. So how can we have 4 refineries not working? And you want to blame the population for these, for your failure, the government organizations. You want to blame the people for the refineries not working, and you have the people who are supposed to make the refineries work. You are sitting with them. So why not then make the refineries functional so that the people can successfully, deservedly possess their, subsidies? What is stopping the refineries? The 4 refineries, which have a capacity of more than 450,000 barrels per day, from working. So I think that, the people are justified, to be angry, to become even much more angry at Tinubu's speech, and even at least some reasonable people like Wale Sonjika, who came out and condemned, his speech and his language, the language that he used, in the speech itself, and the fact that the speech is empty. Reasonable intellectuals, at least in Nigeria, and across the world, have come out to condemn the speech and say this speech is empty. It doesn't address at all at all the interests of the
You know
people.
what, Kwame? You know what, Kwame? Sorry, Mahlet, I'm not taking over. I'm just trying. I'm coming in here to maybe put on another perspective to just explain. I don't know how to say. There are certain things. There's certain things that are done to people that become normalized and culturalized. What you're expect you see, you're speaking from a place where you expect normalcy. I mean, this is not normal. If you had seen the elections, the last two the elections, if you're seeing, I mean, we're talking about the last election in 2023, where somebody came to a polling booth and boasted that if you did not come here to vote for the present president, just live here, because you will not live here with your life if you vote for any other person. That we proceeded. There was no repercussion. The only repercussion was international foreign countries saying, we will never give you a visa to come to our country. So the present president in Nigeria did not even dignify and respect Nigerians enough to give us to talk to them, to explain what his policy was. He said he will make it up once he gets in. You know, it is very easy. What I started saying 2 years when I went back, I started saying it's not really anymore about the government of Nigeria, it's what you allow. If you allow, you receive certain, it's what you allow. When I went back, I noticed that some level, I mentioned it in some write-up, there became a normalcy. The fact that this seems to be the only way, get in and have yours. It's let's screw this country up for how much you can get. So it wasn't a matter, it got to a stage, let me put it down for you. Nigerians were being demonized around the world. The high-risk coping mechanism that Nigerians have used in the last, maybe I'd say 15, 20 years, was to just leave the country. So the option was, everybody knew what was happening. It was horrible. It was getting steadily worse. Just get a visa and go out. The most miserable Nigerians you have in the world right now are not in Nigeria. They're outside the country. That has become a high-risk coping mechanism. So what brought us here is Nigeria or no other. We cannot live in dignity anywhere else. We have to make this work. Now, the protesters are daring to say that I'd rather die here than to go die at home in hunger. So shoot me. When it gets to the stage, you're saying, I'm here, you got to shoot me. So I die here, standing up for my dignity, than to go home and starve to death. So the issue around Wole Soyinka coming up and all is very important. But the fact of the matter is that the present president and is a very proud man. And one of the huge success of this protest so far is the global humiliation. So he knows exactly, he believes he should be able to get away with it because it's his turn. Every other person has gotten away with it. The soldiers who are shooting at the protesters in Kano, they live in poverty too. But most likely, you might be overtly compensated for 2 weeks to make sure this does not continue. I like what you said, Kwame, in terms of the fact that the speech, I mean, was a joke. I mean, for me, I was not disappointed because I expected nothing. This man has always found it tiring to bother to speak to Nigerians. He didn't do it through the elections. He's found it tiring. And I asked when Nigerians were saying, come up, he didn't speak. I said, has it occurred to Nigerians that he might not be competent enough to do this? He might not. He's always ruled through, do this for me. Let me, I can pay you a lot to do that. Why don't you run along and do this? That's how he's managed. He's never been able to. We are even lucky he was able to stand and speak for 23 minutes. He sleeps through meetings. And this man is close to, he says he's 72. He's 72 now. He has a daughter that is 64 now. So we're joking that he had a child when he was 8. So these things are, what you've said, Kwame, you're absolutely right. But we must understand that what is happening now cannot be addressed by the norm. Of course, He basically, stop. If you stop protesting, I will talk to you. And this is not the first time. He went before this protest started to all the religious leaders, especially in the north, to say, go talk to your people, pull them in and everything. They refused. They said no. He started like 2 weeks. He was going to meet with them, call these people. People were going to meet with them. They said nope. And they threatened. He used that, then threatened, don't go on the street, we'll stop you. They went on the street. And you're absolutely right, Kwame. The minute he gave the speech, more people came on. It is a new era. It may end on the 10th, as they said they would do in August day to day, but it has changed. It has changed the face of Nigeria to an extent. And I want to come back to the international dimension because we seem to not bring that in too quickly. Where right now there are 4 countries that have been hoarding, stashing, and receiving funds from political elected public personnel, public officials in Nigeria. I don't call them elites. I said elites connote some. I call them hoodlums. You know, there are 4 countries that receive funds, stolen funds from Nigeria. The top number 1 is the UK. The most expensive properties owned by elected, quote unquote, officials and appointed officials, you find them in London. They own the, then number 2, of course, we have New York is very popular. Dubai is a recent one. Then Canada is scrambling to be part of it. If there's a politician that was elected within 12 months of being elected into office, but was asking a Nigerian medical doctor in Canada to buy a third property for him. He screamed and came out publicly. What's with you? How could you? I will give another. A minister of humanitarian affairs, which should not exist in the first place in the country, was appointed within a month, was caught stealing £500 million. Her predecessor, a woman, was literally $500 million. What are we saying? Corruption is at the core. It's not about, they don't know what to do. It's about corruption has been normalized in public office. Nigeria, if you come to Nigeria right now, you see the most expensive cars. If you come to Abuja, the biggest, largest houses, most empty, is in Abuja. So Nigeria is rich. You come in there, it's rich. It's just, you talk about medical. You should see. You should see the schools in Nigeria. And when we talk of the bad governance, I tend to, when I speak on this, to put it down in brass tacks, not to make it pretty. Because when we talk about lack of electricity, and Kwame, thank you, you are absolutely on point on that one. The megabytes, what we get, we don't get enough, but tariff was removed for not what was not produced. Do you know the number of people who die on hospital beds because of lack of electricity? And that's how I said we need to monitor how many people have died. And it's gotten to a stage where I go back into my African ancestry. Because all Nigerians fear the African ancestors. They take different religions, Western religions, but when it comes to you swear on them. I started doing it. I said anybody who steals any funds that is supposed to develop hospitals, because funds are allocated for these. It's not as though Nigerians don't have the money. No, you allocate funds for these, and people sit down and just share it. The former minister of petroleum bailed to London, stole and bailed. Nigeria is a story of the normalization of corrupt leadership, stolen funds, and it has literally moving to an extent in that process, stealing a whole generation, stealing their future, stealing their ability to dream and envisage a life for themselves. We know nowhere is perfect, but at least you cannot have 99% of the youth under 30 in Nigeria literally walking the street hopeless. About less than 8 years ago, they had an immigration recruitment drive in Abuja. There was a stampede and many died. It was for 100 positions. Close to 400,000 went, and many were in the stampede, many died. That's how desperate Nigerians are to find a future in Nigeria. When people talk about Nigerian men, they show pictures. You find it in Dubai, Malaysia. Nigerians are everywhere. And it promotes the criminality of the Nigerian youth. And I say, these people understand what they are running from. They are running from literally starving to death. It's almost like there's no future in your country. You go to another country, there's no future. You feel you can resort to more desperate acts. So Nigerian youth are demonized around the world. But if you see how willing Nigerian youth are to invest their energy, their dream, their vision in the country, and is blocked, ignored, disregarded by a government that is blatantly corrupt. I'm saying the level of corruption is embarrassing to me as a Nigerian, embarrassing to me as a Pan-Africanist, and embarrassing to me right now, someone who wants to celebrate the positive in Africa. And of course, working as the head of your humanitarian outfit in Pakistan, it's easy to celebrate Africa in a vacuum. I still celebrate Nigeria because I see the possibilities. But tell me, what will make a country be so disdainful of its own people that you do not even consider it? You boast that your children are going to school abroad. And you know what is painful? I'm sorry, I'm emotional. I go into some sec, oh, my children are in school abroad. Oh, this is India. And they are sitting in Nigeria to earn the money to pay for those fees abroad. And how do they get it? Not by salaries. Do you know what the monthly bill for the Senate is? I'm talking monthly. 30 billion naira. And you cannot, and you give, in Nigeria, to come to work will cost you transportation, maybe 20,000 naira. Then to purchase food stock, which is basically blown out of proportion, you can't afford it. It's maybe 30. Don't forget, education, the people who, very elderly, older people who are holding on to office, had free education in Nigeria. And they've doubled from 40,000 for university fees, has gone to 200,000 naira for university fees. I mean, it's unbelievable. Can you imagine? You wake up one day, you pay 40,000 naira for your for university fees. It's now 200,000. There's no future. I mean, you look at them. I can pick my son, hop on a plane, and go. And some people say, but you are passionate about this. Why? I said, because I'm a Nigerian. Because I do speak out. I said, but I'm a Nigerian. So I understand when some Nigerians say, come and pick me, come take me. I can assure you, and I can show you, I saw, not everywhere, they came out peacefully. Nigerians love music. They were using singing, just moving around to just express themselves. The sight of young people on the streets demanding more was an embarrassment, a stain on the lies of the current ruling party. And they wanted that silence by all means. You should see, I will send you clips of in Kano, you see them marching. I'm thinking, go and march in Northeast where you have terrorism. If you are that competent, they don't go there. They march on the street instead, by the side of young people who are demanding, I don't have a job. And you know why the people come? This could go on for the next 6 months. It's because they have no job to go to. There's no work for the people. They could do this for the next 2 years. I will finish here, my brother and sister. You know what makes it so powerful? Now, they've had protests here and there, things didn't change. We have social media. The story is being told. The revolution is being televised. True. You know, they said it's revolution shall not be televised. No. You have the social, everybody, they're there. And by the time the news media come, it has gone around the world. I am calling right now, my role I see I'm playing is to call on the Nigerian diaspora to play their role. Because really, they can go and shoot at them in New York and London, Toronto, even Nairobi, Sweden. Go and shoot at them. That's one way we can manage this. We can sustain it. So I'm calling, I'm pushing. Let's spread it out. It's peaceful. Nobody is going to twist the narrative and the optics and say, oh, you incited violence, you're looting. And the notion about looting, look at what's happening in the UK. We see the Brits looting in their in their protests. You see them carrying things. How many Nigerians did we see looting? They just wanted to disperse them. It's all to silence them. It's an embarrassment. I can abuse you, steal from you, be corrupt, sit down, shut up, and take it. What's the point in pricing a service at 300, maybe 300 naira? Then you say, I will give you, I will increase your salary from 15 to 20 naira to go and access the 300. So when they say we've increased to 70,000, 70,000 for what? For Actually, sometimes I wish I had not been present because it's like I will never be the same again. Because I live in a place that I look out my window, heavily secured. I see all the most. I'm thinking, where did these cars come from? Who is buying them? Where did they get the money to purchase them? A few gather around and sit on the head, the soul, the future of the majority. And yes, the worst of it all is stealing the vision and the dream of young people. And I keep on putting it at that. A person must be able to dream where they are, envision their role, and how they can contribute. Right now, you have to be the son of a politician. You have to be related to the current, you know who they are, the so-called people who felt it. You have this, and I say, it is not just about the current president. It is with the one in the last 2 years. The presidency of Goodluck Jonathan, was perhaps one of the best Nigeria's experienced for close to about 9 years. I mean, he was there for 8 years. For, let me say, 20 years then. Is the best. This I saw in the last 12 months is the worst. And yeah, and I sleep. If I did not speak from what I know, I will not sleep well. I will not, just because I have the resources does not mean I cannot stand with those I know are equal to me, but they did not have the opportunity to stay out of the country. I didn't grow up from a rich home. My father were average civil servants. My mother was a teacher. My father worked in the ministry. Nigeria was good, better than it is now. We didn't live in luxury, but we lived in a country where there was some level of morality and accountability in government. I remember that government leadership was held accountable for when they failed. Well, when they failed to do something, and they spoke to the populace in ways that said, we will correct this. And I saw it, I remember I saw it corrected. This is a regime that is literally almost hovering on being a dictatorship. And dictatorship on the basis of the fact that I will use the money I've acquired illegally to silence anybody and induce the military against you. The military didn't do that as violently as I saw in the last few days. I'm sorry, I'm going on off. I've cried about this. And this is before this protest started. I saw it being planned. I cried. I mean, where I work, I will see like a Timothy, graduated and all. He's coming to help me with my gas. I thought, brilliant, intelligent. This is what I want to do, but it's hard to have access to do it. Why can't Nigerians have access to dream? Young Nigerians to dream and pursue a dream. And these young Nigerians always connect their vision to how they want to make Nigeria great. And people will go out there and demonize Nigerians and demonize Nigerian youth. I will challenge. The way I can counter that is to tell the story of the resilience of Nigerian youth, the brilliance of Nigerian youth, the commitment of Nigerian youth. Not all Nigerians want to get out of the country, but they are caged. They are caged in a world run by corrupt leadership. They are caged in a country run by corrupt leadership.
Sister Choice, we really understand where your emotions comes from. I mean, you have told us really what's happening inside is within the government, the level of corruption and how the people are, the level of poverty or so, and then the gap between the rich and the poor. Now, let's talk about, you just touched it very briefly, the external influence. Now, both on the side of, now we have seen protesters coming with Russian flag. It was yesterday and also today. Now it's more and more happening. And also there is an external influence on the side of the government. I mean, one of the protesters, in fact, being quoted because, and many actually, what they're saying is Bola Tinubu is simply implementing what has been scripted by the US and its Western allies. Now, of course, they might have an interest to sustain the status quo so that they keep on looting this resource from Nigeria. But also, I don't think the West cares if anyone comes and, as long as the looting continues. But it will be good if you can walk us through this external influence, if it's okay with you. Maybe we can give you a break as well. Maybe Kwame can start however you want it. From where you are, I know it's more late than from where we are. So yeah, you are muted, sister.
Don't describe my reaction as emotional. It's not simply emotional, it's factual. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when we quote figures, it becomes a detachment for how people feel. So I would rather you don't use those words, because it's a Western way to detach, to bring your feeling down, because feelings is what makes change. Bureaucracies and bureaucratic and data throwing around does not. What brings change are the people who are on the streets and all. And Devon said that, my sister Mahlet, just put that right. It's important for me to state very clearly that we cannot. I've come to a stage where I look at foreign influence too much, gets me concerned, because it's gone on for a long time. I do know that our Western global citizens have ahead of us in terms of manipulation of African politics and African situations for their own gain. That's been established in a lot of ways. And Nigeria is the most populous Black country in the world. It's a strategic place and a strategic population that has to be managed in a way. Having said that, we have to look at the leaders who are there. The carrying of the Russian flag is a sentiment, because the Nigerians too have chanted that they want the military back. And I think it's a strong message and sentiment that we'll rather have anything else but this. But you note this very carefully. I see it as a transition. Before, as we're a colony of the UK, of Britain. And they didn't call the British.
Sister Choice, can you come close to the camera? Thank you.
No problem, my dear. They did not call the British. They did not call the usual suspect, sorry. They called Russia. And it's a reflection too that in the midst of it all, Nigerians who are on the street, the young people understand the allies, the traditional allies. They don't see Russia as a traditional ally. Nigerian youth are very intelligent. They are brilliant. They understand Patrice Lumumba University in the Russia. They understand certain dynamics in Russia. They understand their former colonizer. They understand the role they continue to play in terms of receiving stolen wealth from Nigeria. They understand that. They understand that when the former president within the same APC, when he was sick, he spent 3 months in the UK. The UK government are very happy to receive Nigerians with the corrupt Nigerian leadership with their money. They know that. They know when the current president was sick, he went to France. They know that. They know the usual suspects. Russia, I think, is an indication of the fact that we will have anything but this crap. Pardon my word. Because that's how we feel about the frustration. I've imbibed the frustration of the youth. You know, they understand that. And that's why they hold and use the Russian flag. And you know what? They could bring in China. China is very much, around these places. It has, they went to Russia, and it's a message. The message is they looked a few, because in the team of the youth that are on the street are graduates, those with PhD, human rights lead. These are not just activism. I believe in activism. I've always been an activist. Those on the street are very intelligent. They are strategic. Every action that has been taken by those who are organizing and leading the protest of end bad governance in Nigeria are some of the most intelligent, brilliant young people we know in the world. They've taken on to activism because they understand sitting down on tables and design will not work. Because what Nigeria deserves, deserves the best, they understand, and they understand what it will take to actually make that happen. They are not thinking it's going to end immediately. They've rejected some of the gestures that have been made because it's an insult. So that, I would say, is the reason for Russia. They would look for any other, it's like any other, but not the usual suspects, And I don't know the other one you mentioned. Not sure the other one you mentioned, but I would say that.
First of all, I apologize for only using the word emotional, but because you said, sorry, I am emotional, not to degrade the facts that you have stated, not at all. That was not my intention.
I've worked in an environment for 15 years where data are deep. I know how those data are.
Yeah.
I don't use them anymore because I've sat in offices where you lick your finger up. You saw 5. Let's duplicate. No, I treat data when it comes to Africa carefully, because very carefully. And it doesn't mean I don't respect them. I believe that. I believe that we need to be careful. I like United States of America. What I like about it is the engagement of its citizens in damning everything international to focus on the country, to make sure they work for what they use, what works for the country. And they are passionate, they sit up, they work for their country and for their country. And I've always said that I treat Africa not as a country, but I think the division in Africa was not for Africa. So I tend to be more Pan-Africanist. My approach is for the whole of Africa. You will see me treat the same in Kenya if I was in Kenya. Mm-hmm. I just love my continent and I embrace it as such.
Okay. So the other you asked me is, what was the other country beside Russia that I mentioned? I say we see external influence both on the protesters on the Nigerian side, meaning like influence in a sense that they coming with a Russian flag, not that Russia influenced the protesters or sponsored them, but also there is an external influence on the government in terms of sustaining the status quo. So what is your reflection on that. We have listened to protesters who have said that Bola Tinubu is simply, he's just implementing what is written by the US, what is written by IMF, what is written by the World Bank, by what is written in general by the West. You are muted. You are muted. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Sorry, my dear. I was Mahlet, and I might be, I'm not naive anymore. I'm in my mid-50s, going to getting older. I've been in the work, in these international affairs for over 30 years. And I think, like I mentioned, the United States of America,
You're breaking.
America is very strategic about what. Now, we ask, why would the United States of America want to support Tinubu to sustain the status quo? If you ask me, it is not clear what they hope to gain. I mean, they found some precious gems in Zamfara, in the states, in the northeast of Nigeria. There are some precious, it's a very, very strategic location. But what would they stand to gain? Now, look at Ethiopia, for instance. Ethiopia had more pressure in terms of the intensity in fueling a narrative of war, of division in Ethiopia. It was tough. What made Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed withstand it? And President Tinubu could not. That is if we assume there's an external influence from the United States. It still boils down to the quality and caliber of leadership. It still boils down. Why has Kagame been able to hand the external pressure to demonize him, call him every name? And Rwanda is one of the growing, peaceful and secured countries in Africa. It comes down to the quality of leadership. So if that external pressure is there, why is he caving into it? What is Nigeria gaining from it? I mean, I visit Ethiopia a lot. Every time I come, it has improved. I mean, let me be this blunt. At the end of the day, we Africans, if we are going to believe in ourselves, we have better believe in ourselves and look internally in ourselves and understand that there will always be external pressure. I mean, look at China and the United States. China was an enemy of was a friend, had a good relationship with the United States until China started improving, developing, and became a formidable competition with the United States, even surpassing it in the last 50 years or 40 years. Suddenly, China was not bad. The United States, yes, tend to enjoy relationship with countries it feels superior to economically. The minute you become a formidable competitor, they now change and you become the enemy. Now, so is the United States, do they have an agenda for Nigeria? They have an agenda everywhere. I look at the humanitarian dumping of food aid around Africa to disrupt United States is the lead on it. So if a country can be in a state where they can just say excess food grains from the states, here, take this, why not? But in terms of a very strategic partnership with President Tinubu, in terms of how to overtake or how to maintain a status quo, they will succeed because the president is asleep most of the time. Most likely when they had the meeting, he was asleep. It's like Cameroon. the leader of Cameroon, you will have to escort him on stage. So at the end of the day, Africans need to stand up. I believe Africans need to speak up. And I guess in a way, I'm tired of analyzing African situation and looking at the West. It's like giving the West too much time right now. We have the resources we need. We have the communication, the evolution of communication, what we need. We can take this battle on. And I look at myself, I said the battles I've fought in the last 3-4 years, most likely if we didn't have social media and the access we have now, they'll come they'll nip us up. But that's not the world we live in now. Everybody have a camera. The narrative can be challenged. So outside influence, the outside influence, yes. I don't think it was the Americans or anybody that led a leadership in the last 9 years to impose such suffering on their people. I believe it's incompetency. I believe they do not have the competency, the experience to lead, to play the role they've played. I believe they came on with the notion that there's some clique of people who can just, give this favor. I gave you this favor, now you give me this favor, and, manage the electoral system. I mean, INEC, who manages elections in Nigeria? I mean, it came on that. I mean, we need to watch the elections in Nigeria to understand where we're going. They understand the lack of accountability, the impunity in certain actions in the electoral system. And I've come to this space, and it's radical. Who said we have to have elections every 4 years? And Kwame, you are my younger brother, and you're brilliant in that sense. You would have to we have to ask questions. Nobody's bothered with China. Nobody's bothered with, but in Africa, they say to be a good country every 4 years. Who said we can't afford every 4 years? It takes a lot of resources, but it doesn't make any difference. In fact, for Nigeria, it's gotten worse. So there are issues that we can manage. Kagame has stood his ground. The person from Uganda, let's look at let's look at Uganda. He stood his ground. And these are countries that are stable enough. Uganda is stable enough to receive refugees and host refugees. Who says so? Because the elections have made no difference in Nigeria. It's escalated the crisis in Nigeria. If something is not working, can we make analysis more practical? It's the same thing I say with Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement. There were people who were right, but there was somebody who said, I'm not going to the back of the bus. Why? And it took that to initiate and ignite a change. We have to do it both ways. We have to have those people on the streets. And in terms of the foreign influence, whether they are doing their thing, there are countries that have overshadowed it. I mean, it's Africans. We need to have a plan. Foreign influence. I went to Seoul, South Korea, because I took my son is in political science, and we traveled the world to look at some interesting countries that have been able to develop and grow out of aid. South Korea was one of them. It was receiving aid as in 1990s. It was at the same level with Liberia. How did it get out of it? Are we willing to say that only Africans are we bold enough to answer certain questions, to say Africans seem to be the only ones who cannot rise who get worse? South Korea can grow, even Mexico. Thailand has a section of the country that is infested with insecurity, but they make a huge revenue in tourism. So the question is that, is there something wrong in the way we manage our system? Is it why are African countries not able to get away from the perception, or if not perception, from the reality of foreign influence? So that's how I look at it these days. And this is from me being a middle-aged woman, having worked in this field, acquired all the degrees I needed to, and worked on the ground and asking questions. I believe there will always be foreign influence. And I know for a fact that African countries have more options. I know for a fact during the Cold War, African countries had more options. It was Russia, it was communism, or not communism. Right now, I don't see the United States actively influencing issues here. I believe the UK, they treat France. Those two are very active in terms of as external influence around the issues that Africa is dealing with. The US, though, they're looking for where to transport grains to. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Choice, really, for sharing that again. Kwame, you have been following this protest on daily basis. Now, do we see any organized leadership of the protests? Is it something that can be sustained? Had it not that Bola Tinubu would, because he did not address the real issue, now today it is intensified. So is there the right leadership of this protest without being hijacked to sustain it. That is one. Secondly, somebody was sharing, this is inspired by sharing his thoughts on what happened today. You know, the Bangladesh prime minister has resigned and fled the country. And do we see what is the ultimate goal? Like, do we see this maybe on the case of Bola Tinubu, if intensified?
Yeah, thank you, Mahlet. Really,
Sorry, it's a pity that Sister Choice left us. Perhaps maybe
no,
it's
she's still on. She's backstage. Yeah,
okay.
she's still on.
Yeah.
So I think that the Nigerian people have really done well so far. There is leadership, definitely. There's organizers
And
of the
before,
protest.
I don't want to interrupt you later. What is the ultimate goal, actually, of the protest? Okay, it's against hunger, but what is it? It's also good to get that point.
I think the ultimate goal is to remove the corrupt from the system and have a system which works for the people. Because so far the system is not looking like it works for the people. If you look at the placards the people have been carrying, you could see a lot of things. Even when you look at our thumbnail, you can see people condemning the neoliberal policies that have been instituted. So it's basically the change of the system. People are talking about socialism. So you can see that the level of consciousness, even you spoke about the people, the fact that people are seeing, Russia, because, they are carrying Russia's flags, all over, as even we have seen in some of the videos. So people are showing that their consciousness, the level of their consciousness right now is much more elevated. That's what it is showing us, as even Sister Choice has enumerated, that the people know what's going on. These people are smart. These are really intelligent people. That is why you see that they are saying that we understand what is going on. We know what is going on, and this system has to be brought down. So all signs show that the system has to be brought down. Now, the road to bringing that system down and removing these people who are destroying the country, and of course, the whole continent, the strategy for removing them, that is another issue, of course, that needs to be debated. And we have had also, Sister Choice, of course, she has said she has, of course, outlined what she thinks should be done. Of course, that is something we can debate on, because of course there is no predetermined process, but at least this is the starting process. This is always the starting process. Many presidents have been, twisted. Their arm have been twisted. We saw what happened in Kenya, that they twisted the president and he dropped the policies. So who is Tinubu that he cannot drop the policies of removing the subsidies for the people? So who is he? He can, if they, insistence, is there, he can be twisted and he can insist it. Ruto was pushed, of course, he's still playing around to try to bring back the same system that the people are fighting against. But of course, that is how it starts. So there is what Nkrumah called the test of the wheels during positive action, what he called positive action, in the Gold Coast, when he was struggling against the colonial system. All right. Of course, even right now, what we have to call it for what it is. It is a colonial system. And whenever we give them the dignity of saying that it is a democratic elected government, it helps them even to entrench themselves inside. But even our narrative, when we are talking on these platforms, it has to change, and we outlaw them and completely say this is a colonial system. This is a colonial government. Tinubu's government is a colonial government. It helps even the people, who are, struggling. We are struggling with, to appreciate really what they are up against, because these people have been hiding and claiming that they are, a democratic elected government. And of course, this is, evident all over, Africa. So I think that the people are on the right track. And the leadership, for me, I see that it is there. Yesterday, they gave, after Tinubu's address, they came out and they gave also their press conference, and they condemned his, speeches, his empty speeches. And they say that the protests are going to continue. And actually, they used the media to call the people that they should come out. And I saw that the message reached. So that is leadership. For me, that demonstrated that there was leadership. So it is just young people, a few young people. There were about 4 young people who were speaking to Arise News, and other media houses which were around, and they said that they read their statements, and then they called later on and they said, people, Nigerian people, come out tomorrow and let us protest again against this. And you can see that, it worked. So that in itself, I think, is leadership. But even when you look inside the country, you can see that there's consciousness, has risen. So that consciousness has not risen, by accident. When people are talking about socialism, people are talking about down with the privatization of, assets, a few people enjoying things, neoliberalism, people are condemning neoliberalism. So all this shows that there's some leadership, even though it is underground, there's leadership that is driving, this forward, even though it may not be visible at this point. But this consciousness has not been reached, through accident. It is, of course, through experience. There's too much suffering, and the people are tired, of being resilient, and of course, that level of consciousness. So that is what I'm seeing currently from my side.
Thank you, Kwame, for that. Sister Choice, do you have anything maybe to add on this, like as of if we missed like the ultimate goal of this protest? Is it to remove Bola Tinubu, or for him to reverse the policies to restore back the subsidies? What is his ultimate goal?
Sister Mahlet, I feel that it's always possible that you can have a policy that ultimately we improve an economy in a country. And if that be the case, a responsible, competent government will have a plan. You could say, if we remove the subsidy, we will have this, that in 1 year. And you can say, fellow Nigerians, we understand that you are a priority. We want to revive, we want to bolster this economy. So to remove the subsidy, which, by the way, apparently the perception was that some people were benefiting from it, the oil subsidy, for instance. So to do that, we will have to work over 12 months to cushion the economic impact. And this is the plan, this is a plan, this is a plan, this is a plan. And my brother Kwame mentioned the loans. The willingness of international systems to give, financial systems to give loans, understanding that the country has the capacity. Everybody know that Nigeria is a top oil producer. We know the issue of corruption. And I wonder the willingness with which, loans are given by the World Bank. And don't forget, increasingly, the heads of these financial institutions are African, and they are usually women. So it's disturbing, because we understand we've done this for 30 years. We understand that these loans are given in a special way at the detriment of African countries. It has not worked. I mean, if something has not worked for 40 years, please, can we do something different? America is the top debtor in the world. America owes more than any other country in the world. America has been built from owing, and one of the top countries it owes to is China. And I ask, what makes America able to owe as much as it owes, to be the top of the world in debt? And they keep on hounding African countries with you owe, you have to borrow, you have to borrow, you have to borrow. It's a shift. And I said neocolonialism is a big area that we need to focus on. It's the new colonialism. It is there. International humanitarian affairs, a presence in Africa. I've discussed it with my brother and sister here. It's a neo-colonialism. The way debt is given to Africa is a neo-colonialism. And there are new names through which old systems are now being implemented in Africa. So for me, I just feel consistency. In my area of work, which is basically challenging protracted international humanitarian presence and action in Africa, which I say undermines sovereignty, castigates, demonizes, uses the same colonial language that was used, justification for colonialism. What was used for the justification of colonialism of Africa is now used for international humanitarian action in Africa. It's the same words and language. I've been challenging that because I believe there are old forms of oppression that are evolving into new forms. So I believe in consistency. Usually in my work area, I've noticed in Africa, we write books. We write books, we sit down, we've written the book. No, they have to be action. Even if we do books, I have a checklist which I publish. Sorry, I'm pitching this, but this is my family here. And it's called the checklist. And it basically says a tool to guide African countries hosting protracted international humanitarian presence in Africa towards recovery. How do we get out? And I publish it every 4 months. And I send it to every African country, the embassy in Nigeria, or the consulate in Nigeria. Take this. Your country has been appealing for international humanitarian action for the last 20 years. It might be undermining your sovereignty and your pathway to economic sovereignty. I send it, and they are pleasantly surprised. I've closed down 2 ministries that shouldn't be in Nigeria because of consistency. Nigerians, I want to say this, African leadership, African governance are hungry too for awareness. They're hungry. I've found that to be so. Not all African countries, all African leaders are just waiting to say, how much of Western ally can I align with? No, they want to leave a legacy too. But they are surrounded usually by people who are not at that level, but operating in a way for self, they're pursuing their self-interest. And they're covered by that, so they make mistakes. So that's the approach I take. And Mahlet, what is the hope really? The hope for where we are right now? Mahlet and my brother, my sister Mahlet and my brother Kwame. Do you think what Mahlet is doing is small? Do you think what you're doing, Kwame, is small? Think about it. You are 2 brilliant people. You could go anywhere and earn the highest salary, but you decide to do this. It's all in the spirit of a new attitude, new belief in sacrificing for the continent. And that is what built the United States. I tell people that I've seen more homeless people in the United States, people drugged up in LA, celebrated as Hollywood family. I've seen the worst. I've seen it anywhere in Africa. I've seen it in New York. I've seen it in Rome in terms of the stench of garbage crisis. Rome has garbage crisis, but it's the romantic city of the world. What is stopping us from, yes, fighting to change that which does not work, but make sure we promote what works? Look at Rwanda. Rwanda, I think, is just a joy to think about. We all know that the UK, Rwanda signed an agreement with the UK to send asylum seekers in UK that UK cannot absorb to Rwanda. Rwanda said, bring them. But we take care of them. We have some here we take care of. We give them apartments. They refused. The lawyers, the British lawyers refused. You know why they refused? Because asylum seekers and migrant, advocacy is an economy in the UK. So they try to bastardize Rwanda to say human rights history. And I fought too. I said, no, fight your business, leave Rwanda away. And I draw attention that they are the asylum seekers and migrant application is an industry in the UK. It pays lawyers' fees from taxpayers. So I think we have to now break it down and make it practical. And I fought, and I continued fighting. I was typing. I work a lot, 9 to 5. I'm there typing like crazy. So we live in a world of hope, and that world of hope means that we live in a world of technology. We live in a world where we have Africans all over the world. So when we have a situation like this, if Nigerians are scared of being shot at, they're not going to do it in the UK around the world. So why don't you step out? There are some who are scared to get their papers, but why can't those who have their papers step out? When I was a student in Montreal, I used to go to Ottawa in a bus, some of us to go picket in front of the Nigerian embassy. When they wanted to kill Ken Saro, who was fighting for oil rights. He was assassinated, he was killed eventually, but we did a bit. So when I see these young people doing this, I say, this is it. You're doing it in time, but you're doing it at a better time where you had more access to technology, to strategy, more than I did, more than we did as a middle-aged woman. I'm not going to stop. I will have a walking stick and continue fighting, because that is what it will take to build this beautiful continent we call Africa. Rich in resources, built in resources. And we have a situation right now. I thank you, Mahlet. I thank you to Kwame. We are all Africans at the end of the day. It is not Nigerian, it's not Ugandan, it's not Ethiopian. We are all Africans, because we were divided, not by our consent, by a Berlin Agreement. And we are going to act above that, to pull our resources together to fight. And right now, that battle is in Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous Black country in the world. If Nigeria works, the whole of Africa will work. If Nigeria fails, it will affect the whole of the continent. So please don't stop this. Join them, talk to them, fight for them, fight with them. That's what I asked for.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Joyce. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Really, indeed, many thanks. Thank you very much, Sister Choice, for being here in a very, very short notice, in fact. So I really, really appreciate. I always enjoy to talk to you. So, thank you.
Mallet, you have muted yourself. You have muted yourself. Mallet.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. No, just before you leave, somebody said Dejuma, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I read it and then I cannot locate it again. The US is built by the free labor of slaves. I remember you said something related to how the US is built. So if you have,
I think what she meant was the ideas itself, the ideas themselves, which built the United States. Of course, we can't rule out the fact that it was built by slavery, right? But you cannot also rule out that a group of people came together to organize themselves and build a country, all right? Regardless of how they built it, there's a group of people who came together. Now, for us also as Africans, we have our own labor. And of course, it's our labor which built the United States. So we are not missing anything. We have these resources, material resources. We have the labor itself. So that, I think that is what she was trying to reflect on, or to put across, that we should also be able to organize ourselves. We should be able to believe that we can organize this continent and rebuild it. Okay, because it has been devastated for the last 600 years, definitely. So we should be able to do that also, without even using somebody else's labor. So if other people can come here even and drag our labor and take it and build, a different place, to make it look like it is looking. If China can build, its own country using its own labor to where it is, we should also be able to do that, because the Chinese, they use their own labor to build their own country, and reconstruct, because it was devastated by Germany, Britain, British aggression, Portuguese aggression, who had mutilated China and taken over Macau, taken over Hong Kong. The United States also was part, the Opium Wars. Over 100 years, they spent in what the Chinese call the Chinese century of humiliation. Humiliation, over 100 years of humiliation. But how were these guys able to rise above that? And two, they have tribes. So we can't rule out that the Chinese, they don't have tribes. They have tribes, more than 50 tribes in one country. All right. So I think that is what she was trying to put across, that we have also the material to do that, but it just requires us to be consistent and use all the tools that we have, at our disposal, and we have to work together. Absolutely. So it was not about, that the United States was not built with labor, but the ideas, of course, that the people came together and decided to build a powerful country, regardless of the means which they used to build it. These guys, they came together and they built a very powerful country. So whether that country is acting, gracefully across the world, is acting as expected. That is another topic, of course, which we can debate later on. And of course, that is what we everyday debate here, how the United States is behaving towards the global south, and that it has become a parasite like its mother Britain, when it was having its power. So, but the point is that they built a country regardless of how they are sustaining it. So if they did it, we can do it. I think that is what Sister Joyce was trying to put across.
Thank you. Thank you, Kwame. Yeah, very good. Then really a round of applause for Sister Joyce. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you. We learn a lot, with your rich experience. And yeah, hopefully this is not the last time that we will have you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure, Sister Mahlet. And Kwame, it's always a pleasure. You are my younger brother. you are, you are so brilliant. You should speak to my son. You think very much alike like my son. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And keep up the good work, Sister Mahlet. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good work. Bye-bye. Okay. All right, then. Okay, so I think it's good. I'm very happy that we have had a view that's shared from Nigeria directly. It's really important, really, to get to the hearts of what Nigerians think on what is going on. So we are, I think, covered most of the questions, unless what I would like to hear is that actually maybe if my Niger people here from live, if you can share, what do you think could be the role of the Nigerian diaspora now, in terms of supporting the people on the ground? Or is
Actually,
there
yeah, I think that Sister Choice brought in a new dimension. I think that is a very important point to think about, because we have not seen the activity of the diaspora. We don't know whether they have been online, but we really need to see them, whether it is in Britain and the United States. I mean, they need to join the fight and fight for the country and support the people at home, so that at least people can feel, at home, that they are being supported. I think this is very important. Maybe we can hear from the Juma. Is the Juma still there? We could invite you. If you're Nigerian and you want to talk about this, let me invite you. Let me put the link in there in the chat section, so that we can invite someone from the diaspora to talk to us about what they have seen. So I've just put the link. You can join us. I make a few comments, 1 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, whatever it is, because we want to hear what are the diaspora really doing. We have put the link for joining the chat,
2 minutes
for joining the broadcast.
If it's more than one, maybe, yeah. If not, if it's just one person, then we can.
Even if it's one, we just need one person, 1
minute or something. But yeah, yes. If you have anything to share, please join us.
In 2 minutes, in 2 minutes, 2 minutes each person. If you get 2 people, 2 minutes each person, I think that would be okay. Other than that, I think that they are really they have really made us proud. The Nigerian people, I think that they have made us proud, whatever they are doing, and we need to continue on, because this struggle is.
Any similarity between the speech of Bola Tinubu and William Ruto in the beginning?
It's almost similar. Actually, it's almost similar. Feel the arrogance.
Seeing this was saying it seems like it's written by the same person.
Almost all of them, they are filled with a lot of arrogancy. So it's almost similar. All of them, they are similar. That they are not really addressing the issues which are affecting the people. They are rather moving around in circles, and then even threatening the people and calling people thugs and stuff like that. All the tactics that were used in Kenya, when by Ruto in Kenya, when the demonstrations were starting, they are the same tactics. When you see Tinubu, is the same stuff which his government has used. So I think that is what Nkrumah called the test of the wheels, that the colonialists will come out to test you to see whether you are, you are determined that you want what you want. You are determined about what you want. You mean what you want. So you are supposed to stand your ground and say, this is what we want. All right. So I think that the Nigerian people, so far now, they have demonstrated that they are very serious, and I think that we need to encourage them on, and we need to encourage the diaspora also. We need to encourage the diaspora, to be, part of this. The diaspora need to come in and, join the fight and encourage, the people at home, whether it is finances, organizations should start so that some finances, like what happened during the End SARS movement. Because I believe that during the End SARS movement, what happened is that this content that came up, during the SARS movement, it went back after that suppression that happened, during the End SARS protests. So that this content is the one which is rising up again, and it will keep rising until it blows up, the whole thing. So if the time is now, I think that, we need to put in whatever we can to support the people who are on the ground carrying out this struggle. Yes, the Juma, do you have anything to add in regards to the diaspora?
So what I'm going to say is Nigerians, like most Africans, are not organized. Like I said before, the basis for Pan-Africanism, the primary core of it cannot be rooted in bigotry. Right, wrong, or indifferent, Africans still have a long way to go when they look at each other. There's this level of ignorance, right? People talk about, again, if you're fighting for African liberation, Europeans cannot be your basis or point of reference. There's a problem with that. And also, like Kwame Nkrumah said, I'm an African not because I was born in Africa, but because Africa is born in me. Pan-Africanism was birthed in the US in historically Black colleges. Nkrumah and Azikiwe were schoolmates. And then so were other re-independence leaders. Most of them went to historically Black colleges. And as you said, Kwame, the collaborations were there. They work with the Malcolm X's and all these people. And while the civil rights struggle was going on in the US, the struggle for re-independence was also going on in Africa. So the battle wasn't isolated. When the struggle was going on here for civil rights, John Kennedy, who is deified here, he was a crude racist. He tried to use Nkrumah and Azikiwe as a battering ram against the struggle here. Basically, the divide and conquer. And they were like, no, we're not going to allow you to use us against our cousins here because we see what you do. He was shocked because, that they know about that. It's like, yeah, we went to school here, so we know. So, when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we cannot just be, think from a perspective of it's just African on the continent. It has to be African people. There are more Pan-Africanists in Brazil and elsewhere in the US than you do on the continent. So with the question you ask, because Africans don't even necessarily work together unless maybe during a party or social settings, you don't, because of that, when events like this come around, you don't necessarily see a coherent march. And when you do see a march, it's a bunch of Africans asking white people to save them, which makes no sense. It's like, for instance, it's not just them, you see,
Yeah,
like,
but the Juma, you see that at least there's supposed to be somebody. When of course you follow Nkrumah's trail, there's supposed to be somebody to organize that. Them, of course, to bring them together. Nkrumah tried that even when he was in the United States. You could see that he would put himself in that role of being a leader somehow. in these groups, in these associations, which are for the Africans. And of course, this, I believe, is an ongoing struggle. And even during the peak of the struggle itself, you will never, of course, get 100% support from all Africans, definitely. Even I was reading Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King, and he was complaining about the middle class, the African American middle class, why they remain in their houses during the struggle. People are demonstrating, the poor people on the street demonstrating against the racist police. They are in their houses, they are hiding. Some of them are not even contributing anything. So you could see that, you can see that this, of course, happens in all struggles, that not all people, participate. But of course, I understand your point, what you are saying. But what I'm trying to put across also is that there's supposed to be somebody to organize that process. Of course, it is a struggle, and even bringing together people in itself. I've tried this myself. I know what it is. I've been with different groups, Pan-African groups, but to bring them together in itself is not easy job, actually. But then, when
uh,
yes, but when the time has come, of course, the time itself does not wait for that. So the process of organizing is supposed to be a struggle in itself, and it's supposed to be a continuous process, so that at least they find us somewhere. When the time comes, we are somewhere. We have reached somewhere. Maybe you can have somebody. You call this one, call the other person. So I think that is what we want to hear, how we can go forward with that process of
I know, and that's my point. In the
holding
sense,
those
the,
processes.
the basis for that is organization. Let me give you a personal example. I'm a biomedical engineer. I try to create and work in this space, which is very. You don't see a lot of people of African descent. It's rare, which is sad. And then most of the when you do see people of African descent, it's usually Africans. And while we struggle with racism, so I was like, let me create this group, this WhatsApp group, to give us. Let's build it so it can form a basis for information sharing. When you go for interviews, what sort of racism are you experiencing? Are you experiencing at work? What to look for? Which companies not to work for? Or things like that. And I created this like a year now, and it's like pulling tooth, trying to get people to fill this space, to be like, let's build a community
It's,
of
it's, it's, it's
where,
difficult. It's
yeah. So
absolutely difficult.
yeah, so like this morning, I think it may have been this morning or last week. I just saw it on YouTube, where a handful of Nigerians were at the Nigerian embassy in New York, protesting. So there were not a lot of people. I live on the other side of the country, so so there might be something in Washington D.C. area, but like you said, with the reference that Dr. King gave, a lot of Nigerians are middle class or lower, so people are struggling
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
survive. So they're not going to necessarily have time to go
yeah,
do things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
As a result, and again, like I said, you have people who already dug in on who they are supporting. So you're
Hmm.
oftentimes not going to get the sort of marches one would expect. Unfortunately. So I guess perhaps the best thing going forward is if voting can be put in place where people who live outside the country can vote. Like I've never voted in Nigerian election because they believe that.
There's countries which vote. I think like Rwanda, they vote. The citizens who
Yeah,
are outside the country. There's a couple of
yeah.
countries which do that.
And they've been,
But I really don't think that voting is going to be the solution.
of
Myself,
course, of course, of
personally,
course.
I
I
really don't
agree.
think that voting is the solution in Africa. But what is, I believe that what is going to be the solution, of course, for the continent is for us to come together and understand what kind of governance do we need
We want,
as a
yes,
people on this
yes.
particular continent. Whether it is voting, if we agree on the modality, which is not corrupt, which is not influenced by anyone from outside. But in the meantime, right now, the question is, what do we do now to help with the situation? Because the process is not predetermined. Even in Nkrumah's approach, you could see that it was not predetermined. He was trying this, trying that, and trying this. You know, and this is where he reached at the end of his life, revolutionary, handbook of revolutionary warfare. He thinks that this is the end of it. This is the last strategy. So for us to put together all this knowledge now and all these strategies, whether it's non-violence, and then progress from there, what is happening, I mean, where are we now? I think that is where we really need to start interrogating ourselves and say,
Exactly.
where is
Exactly.
where is who has this capability and this capability across,
Exactly.
because that's
And
how
then,
the Nkrumahs, they formed themselves. Nkrumah left to the
and
United States, and CLR James, directed him that you go to Manchester and find George Padmore. George Padmore had stayed in the Soviet Union. So they made, George Padmore met Nkrumah, and all them guys, they were there, in Manchester, and then they came together. So I think that we have rapidly, even ourselves in this generation, to start interrogating ourselves and asking ourselves, where is this and this and this? Where is who and who can do this and this and this? So that by this time, or starting now, because definitely the world is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And of course, a lot of people have said that the changes which are happening now, they don't happen, they rarely happen, unless, in 100 years. People like Xi Jinping have said this, President Xi Jinping of China, this is a president. So he has noticed that huge changes are happening, and it has been those phases in which actually our people have jumped in and got, the independence, that from 1945, Nkrumah, they are in Manchester, 1945, 1957, 12 years. Okay, so they noticed some changes, 10 years, 12 years even before Ghana could achieve independence, and they were able to organize themselves. So I believe that we are in that moment, that particular moment, even in this era where we are, that we
so,
need
so
now to ask ourselves,
I get
where
it.
is
I get it.
this?
So basically, sorry to cut you, but basically, what needs to happen, in my view, is whatever group you're in, people need to start engaging in conversation. I want to give you another example. I was, added to a group because for me, politics is part of life. Everything is about politics, and unfortunately, again, it goes back to to our worldview. And in some instances, people don't want to engage in that. Africans, where I mean, it's rare to, when you're in an African setting, particularly Nigerian setting, people are usually talking about two things: politics and football. At every party. But then when they join a certain forum, they don't want to talk about politics. So I joined the forum once, and they didn't want to necessarily discuss politics. So I exited. So I exited the group. So because I feel like you have to discuss things like that, is they're part of life. And so I guess the advice is, wherever people are, wherever group they are, those type of conversation needs to start happening, right? As to, as you said, who we are, where are we trying to get to, what are we trying to achieve, what are our shared goals, so that conversation have to start happening now, so I just, that's my view, because again, like I said, it's not like we have a already established group of shared values of people where things like this happen, and we're looking at it from a holistic perspective of, this is us, and we have to then go say something. That doesn't currently exist. So to build it forward, going forward, to your point, then we need to work together, start wherever you are, start having that conversation, and have a baseline of, what are we, where are we trying to get to, so that when things like this happen, where it impacts everybody, then everybody can be there. So this has nothing to do with party. This has nothing to do with who is in office. This just has something to do with us. So
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
so this is a starting point for again,
Yeah,
for people to, wherever forum they are, amongst your friends, at a party, have a conversation. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
but
So
thank
what
you.
I admire about the Nkrumahs is that these guys, they when they came to Manchester, they determined what they want to see, in the continent, where they wanted to see the continent go. And I think that that is where we are now, that we need to determine this very quickly right now,
Yeah, and
and
to go back,
draw the line,
yes, and to
and
go back
what.
to what we've been talking about in Nkrumah again. We have to become our ancestors.
Absolutely. I
Um,
think you spoke about
because
that yesterday, right?
yes, because I heard that in Nigeria they don't even teach history because they don't want to hurt certain people's feelings, which is the most ridiculous thing, right?
I
So,
think that's everywhere, that we don't teach history. It's,
which is
yeah,
dangerous.
and neither in Ethiopia. Yeah.
Yeah, which is dangerous. It's so dangerous.
Absolutely dangerous.
And
Very dangerous.
yeah, and even in the US, they're flipping history on its head. Literally, a
Yeah.
governor in the US said that slavery and enslavement was good for African people because it taught African people skills.
Was that DeSantis? I think was it
Yes,
DeSantis?
yes. Like that was so ridiculous. When Africa is the cradle of civilization, he literally said Africans learn how to blacksmith, due to slavery. Okay, so in the U.S. they are flipping history on its head. They are trying to where they've been trying to rewrite history across the Western world, and then you have Africans who don't know anything about their history, and then some people would even think that colonization was a good thing because they don't read it. So if you already don't have that, if you already don't have, like for me when I was, I went to some schooling in Nigeria at the early teens, like 13 or something. My father gave me Steve Biko biography. you know I was reading, even though it was all washed up because it's not really a good biography of Steve Biko, but at least I had an idea of who Steve Biko was. He gave me two books. It was, autobiography of Steve Biko and or his biography of Steve Biko and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And most people don't have that kind of thing. So again, if you don't have that baseline, where even I heard some ridiculousness in Nigeria now, where children born in Nigeria are being told by their parents not to speak a Nigerian language. So if you're
Yeah,
already raising children like that, how are they going to be able to
definitely. Of
thrive
course,
if
that
they are not
just that's yeah. So that just shows you the extent, of course, the system that we are supposed to uproot.
to be
How
exactly?
much it has penetrated,
Yeah,
that it is now trying to uproot the languages themselves,
exactly.
which
So
they failed to uproot during colonialism and slavery. So
yeah,
now they are seeing if they can uproot them,
yeah.
during neo-colonialism, covertly, of course. But
So
anyway, I think we need to continue this this conversation.
yeah.
Uh,
So
you
that's
know,
why,
uh,
in essence, in closure, this is why we have to appreciate the AES, because Mali, they are going back to the language, and I think they're doing the same thing in Burkina Faso. So, so yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Dejuma. Thank you,
Thank
Dejuma. Thank you so much. Back to you, Mollet.
Yeah, thank you, Dejuma. Yeah, he left. All right. Okay. Now, thank you all. Really, it was really good, interesting. There were some things that I forgot I wanted to say, but it kind of, what was it? Anyway, it's fine.
Open it.
Yeah, it's 1 hour and 47 minutes. Hopefully, yeah, we will. You will keep them updated on this Nigeria protest issue. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Really, for voting. It's not an easy to watch or listen to, tune
2 hours.
yeah, I cannot imagine that. So really, thank you very much. And more than that, you were active, engaged, asking, suggesting, because it's all really, we don't take it for granted, as we always say. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to the channel. I have seen a lot of new names, so please go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Give it a like, okay? Don't be greedy. Just give it thumbs up. It will help our YouTube algorithm, and if you find it informative enough, of course, and share the video with others. Do not keep the knowledge or information only to yourself. That's not right, and that's not the aim that we are here. Other than that, if you, which we would love to, if you wish to support us, our PayPal account is in the description section. So please go ahead and you can donate to that account anything is, great for us. So thank you very much. Patricia Cox, greetings, sister. How are you? Pedro, good to see you again. Gode, Sabena, Bonsu, Big Well, also have been here yesterday. CNDS, thank you very much for all your engagement and comments. The Pedro, Imhotep, yeah, indeed. I leave the rest for you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I want to appreciate everyone for being part of the.
Yoruba land, Yoruba land,
Yeah,
child of
yeah, yeah.
God on the Rhine,
Yes.
and Cuba, all of you. If I have,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's of course, the Juma.
Mahlet, Sodi,
Mm.
all
Yeah,
of
the
them.
Juma, we appreciate you for being part of this. C&S, of course, also Child of God, Male, we saw, Male here also, Ramasodi, everyone, we really appreciate you for being part of Connect Africa and always, holding us, high, and supporting the platform is really important. Continue to support the platform as it grows. We are seeing that it is growing rapidly, but it is also all because of your support. It's growing because of your support, and we really appreciate that. Continue to share it out there with other people, and of course, support us through the PayPal account. It will help us to be here more often and to digest the problems that are affecting the continent, of course, and give solutions. Also, it's not good for us to just talk about these problems. It's also good to give the solutions and deliberate and connect. Of course, it's important to connect. Like we said, we need to recognize that the times we are living in are extraordinary times, and there are times for those who are supposed to fight for the interests of the Black people to come together again, like those who fought in let me say 1791 in Haiti. They came together, and those who came together in 1945. So we believe that it is during such periods that we are supposed to come together. So when we communicate, we support each other, support the channel, all through PayPal account. Mahlet has already mentioned super chat. You can support in any way you can. So we want to thank you once again, and Mahlet, thank you very much for putting this together. It was really interesting. It's one of the most powerful programs I think we have ever had. It was really powerful, very, very powerful. Thank you so much.
And thank you to you as well for being here always. It's not easy. It's those who knows. It's not easy, but we do our best really to be here. And thank you so much. And it's a bye-bye from us, and tune in for upcoming new videos. Ciao, ciao.